So, hello everyone. This is
Hi.
Tamara from Fashion Roundtable. If I could just ask, please, that everybody who dials in and isn't one of our speakers, please puts themselves on mute and can add exactly as Nevo has at the bottom their comments in the chat box. I'm here basically to do housekeeping. This event is being videoed and will be shared on our YouTube, and we've just spoken to the BFC and it will be being shared through their platforms as well. It's fantastic to have everyone here, and I'm really honoured that our fashion director Karen Binns and our academic lead on our representation paper Royce are part of this conversation that Karen has curated. Just to say that I hope that everybody is respectful. This is a very, very important conversation. We kept it private for a variety of reasons. And if there's anything that's not correct, unfortunately, you will have to be knocked off the call, because it's important that we are heard and we are respectful in this conversation. And yes, as is being done, if people can keep to the chat box and keep yourselves muted and your videos off, that would be brilliant. I'm now going to hand over to Karen Binns, our fashion director. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say, what's good? I hope everybody's feeling the sun like I am at the moment, and feeling more and more positive about the disgraceful behavior globally on Black lives and how it has affected us as a community of people. I think it's important now more than ever to hear and listen to voices that aren't usually heard. We're in an industry, which is fashion, which is quite elitist. And I think that the voices that everyone has been hearing lately probably trickles down to just 10 voices amongst thousands of people that are of color that work in the fashion industry is, for me, very, very unfair. And hopefully through Fashion Roundtable, we will try and organize as many of these as we can to see and hear and feel, you know, the response and the pressure and the pain and the hurt that we all go through. Personally, I feel, as a Black person in the fashion industry now over 25 years, because of the way things have been going on and how fashion started with people with loads and loads of money or in a certain class were only allowed to be involved in fashion. We are feeling the pain of that. And I think it's our duty more than ever now to speak out, be real, and feel safe for saying and doing what you need to do in order to, you know, progress as a people within the industry. I have some really major people here, and I've always felt, I've known them for over 20 years, and I've always felt that they had so much to say, but never have been given the chance globally. And right now, we're very fortunate to have people from all over the world that have tuned in on this one webinar. So already I feel blessed. And I'd love to start with one of my oldest friends. His name is Buchanan. He's a designer, creative director of a Milan-based luxury knitwear brand called SANSOVINO, and a former design director and consultant for Bottega Veneta. He actually was the first designer that they brought into the house to revamp it and to bring the name back into the fashion industry years ago. And ever since then, he's done some incredible work. You know, Edward, you know, knowing you for so long and knowing also for the fact that you live now in Milan as a Black American, we are both expatriates.
Right.
And I think we have quite a lot in common just on that aspect alone. But, you know, I was just, you know, thinking of a few things to ask you about how you feel in Milan. You know, as a Black person living and working in Milan, how can the Italian fashion industry basically take responsibility to face the racist existence of their industry based on their past?
Wow, that's a big question. First and foremost, thank you for having me, inviting me. It's a pleasure to be able to have conversation with like minds in this moment. I, like you said, have been in Italy around more than 20 years. So I too, between 20 and 25 years have been working within the fashion industry as a designer, specifically a designer. I'm a fashion designer. When I first arrived in Milan, let's say in Italy in general, there were very few people of color in general working in the fashion industry. I remember there was me, there was a guy named Warren Davis, who's English, who was working at Jill Sander. There was Lauren Steele, who's still here with Marnie, and a few others. So it was an interesting vibe because coming from New York, you almost felt like if you were within this atmosphere, the Italians in general viewed Black people as either selling Prada bags on the street or you were working in fashion. And there was no in between. So we didn't see in government or official places like post offices or even taxi drivers, we didn't see people of color. Integration is not something new in Italy. There's a history of colonialism here. We have to talk about, the Libyas and the Eritreas and Somalia. They're settlers that are here in Italy. So they were familiar with Black people. But we also have to remember that Italy, they have also a patriarchy issue. So, there's that level that works into the system as well. It's a male-dominant society, and they were not used to thinking that Black people in general could find themselves in positions as leaders. So I was skilled, but I was also very lucky to be offered that position at Bottega Veneta. I was green, I was exiting Parsons School of Design, and I essentially applied for the job, and I received the contract. With fear, but also with strength and energy in diving into a position like that, I had to do, like you said, what I had to do in order to, let's say, make that house and the position that I was offered into something international. And it was I think 7 years that I worked at Bottega Veneta. After Bottega Veneta, I went on to be a consultant, and I'm working in various different luxury and mass market brands. But as a whole, there is an insecurity and arrogance in the Italian system. And when we have this conversation about integration, let's say, or not integration, in a conversation about diversity within the system, the Italians always think that it's something that's happening over there. And I'm pointing to the United States. They never think or assume that what's happening over there relates to, the history of what they do. You can look at the Gucci, you can look at the Pradas, you can look at the Dolce & Gabbanas. All of those, let's say, mishaps that happen within the system are also all because they didn't have anyone on the inside. You can't talk about diversity on the outside by just hiring a model if you're not represented on the inside, because if there's no one there to say, hey, this is a problem, and this is going to be a problem, it becomes very difficult for a corporation to respond.
It's a fundamental thing now, I guess more than ever, to have us at the table in the room, and basically more than one of us.
Sure.
Because
that's interesting. I have always, let's say, been from the camp where, yes, we're talking about inclusion here. We want us to be, we're skilled and we're strong and we're energetic. We want to be considered. I don't want a seat at the table. This is not the conversation that I'm having. A seat at the table means to me that I want them to invite me in. I want to arrive because of merit and skill. And what we want is the possibility to be considered equal within this system. My brand name is on the door. I have maintained SANSOVINO 6 as my brand because I wanted to be able to say and do as I wanted to do. I work within this fashion system. I work with different companies, but I want to, as people of color, as Black people, I want us to be able to know that if we're approaching something, that we are getting that fair shake based on skill as an individual.
Right.
I think it's important.
I mean, and when you think of Italy, of course, it's not a multicultural country, and we know that. But at the same time, they make most of their money on the back of the black dollar.
Absolutely.
So for me, they can no longer ignore the fact that the black dollar is what's keeping someone like Gucci afloat.
Right.
And for that reason alone,
yeah,
if anything, for that reason alone, we can choose to ignore it. But if you say to the black community worldwide, do not buy Gucci for 1 week, let's see how long it will last.
That's our power.
Yeah. That to me, it's that deep. So even though it's not a country that has a huge multicultural, amount of people living there, doesn't mean they can ignore the dollar.
Yeah, but you have to consider also they're Afro-Italians. They're second generation Italians that live here from African descent, and they're never considered Italian. They're always considered Africans. When you see them, they are considered Africans. They're not considered, an Italian that works, that really deserves the same space and respect as an Italian, a white Italian. So there are a lot of difficulties in that are melanged in between what's happening from the government, obviously, and from people that are mixing. Right.
Well, you know what? I'd like to give someone a chance to kind of like go on top of this conversation. I'd like to introduce the CEO of a commercial brand management consultancy agency called MNN. And her name is Michelle. Hi, girl. How are you?
I'm fine, my darling. And how are you?
Well, I'm very excited to have all of you guys, on board to, at least give your testimonies and your experiences on how it feels to be Black in the industry, not just because you've just arrived as a student, but because you have been here for over 10 years. So I think this is a very, very important conversation to state what you've had to go through and are still going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to ask you, first of all, what is it like to be a brand representative in, in a sales management position as a Black woman?
I think first and foremost, as a representative of a brand, it's exciting, especially when you have a brand whose integrity and their design and their ethos and philosophy you admire and you respect. That's really and always will be exciting for me. But as a Black woman involved in this, it's also exciting. It can also be very interesting. I came into working in sort of international wholesale management, and like Ed was saying, when he started his career and he came from one place and he came into another space, green. And in a way, I kind of came in green as well. So I had to learn from the ground up. Now, I came into that role because I was capable and I was good.
There you go.
But then when you actually get deeper into it, when you do go traveling and you do organize and be part of those huge international trade shows and so forth, and you are there to represent a brand, most of the time it should be good. I'm here to do a job like everybody else. But then all of a sudden, when you have a few incidents where people will literally not talk to me or deal with me because I was Black, and it was very obvious. So that was very hard to take. But at the end of the day, I still have my work to do. But what was quite tricky is that whoever I'm working with, it could be the CEO of the company that I'm representing or whatever it is, I want to be able to share that moment and that experience in that moment, but I couldn't because I was the only one who looked like me.
That's quite scary. That's really scary.
It's super scary, and everyone has their ways of different coping mechanisms depending on where you are in the world and who you are as a person. But for me, I held it in my stomach, that feeling of like, wow, what was going on there? Was I misreading this situation? But of course, I know that I wasn't. And sometimes it was quite difficult to be able to part that experience with someone else who looks like me and may have an understanding of how I feel. So I had to carry that, but still carry on with my work. So that's an additional burden. And also it's an additional amount of energy that you have to carry to counter that as you go through your job, your day-to-day, your career. So it's something that I'm very aware of. And when I first started, there were only a few people who actually looked like me who were doing my role. Over the years, you see one or two more people, and it was great, especially to see another Black woman. Wow, amazing, absolutely fantastic. So you do form alliances and you build those bonds. And sometimes you can actually find someone to, you know, share that experience with. But overall, my main take from my experience in international sales management, it is about a business, it's about an economy, and it's about creativity. That's what for me it's all about. I want to be seen. I want to be seen for who I am as a person and what I can do. And yes, I am a Black person as well, so don't forget it. Actually, yeah, exactly. But I do want people to actually recognize that, yes, you know, as you were saying, to have that merit, to have that passion. And if you have it, you want to have that passion supported all the way through. But unfortunately, there are companies that don't recognize that. They don't recognize that you have a passion and they need to support you in doing that. Rather than just thinking you're a Black person, oh, okay, let me just fill this gap with this person over here. Great, I look wonderful. No.
I mean, I think right now it's no longer acceptable to be judged as anyone less than, you know, than your colleagues. And if you're at a trade show and there's you representing an incredible brand, and there's a white privileged girl who's representing not so great a brand, will the buyer go to her and instead of going to you? That for me has got to stop. We have got to come up with something that puts the pressure on people to stop judging us and putting us in these categories.
Exactly, I totally agree. And that is a situation I've actually seen it, and I've seen it far too many times.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen it, and I was thinking, I've registered what's happened there, but I know actually my worth, and I know actually what I'm doing is greater than what's happening over here. Let me just get on with it. But again, that situation, it still holds deep in your stomach. There's a slight knot there because you know that there's something not quite right. And I was thinking about the conversation that we're all having here today. And I was thinking about my experience in the fashion industry, and everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different outlook and whatever it is. But for me, it feels sometimes as if I'm walking in treacle. I can see that park, I can see that door ahead of me. I know where I want to go. And I'm walking alongside somebody, we're both going to the same place, but they keep on throwing that treacle in your path, and it's just making your feet drag. And it's making it a lot harder, but I'm still going anyway. I still need to go. And usually what's happened is you get to the door might be open for you, you can go through and it's cool. Or sometimes the door is just open a little bit and you really have to push that door open. Then they close it again and you repeat. At this current moment, what I really feel is that something has triggered and people are much more aware and alert and open to these situations that are happening within the fashion industry.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And what I feel at the moment is that I'm still walking towards that door. I will open the door and I'm going to take the door off the hinges, and I'm going to take the frame off the door off the wall as well, take it off. So no one actually anymore can actually have that power or that right to shut that door in your face. I'm taking the door with me. It's mine.
Well, we have to talk about it.
I've got my drill, I'm taking it off.
Yeah, it's accountability, you know, there's something that has to happen.
On that note, and thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's incredible. On that note, I'm going to introduce another young girl that I've known for a very long time. We've seen each other at shows. We've also seen each other passed over outside of shows, over other students or, you know, young little privileged girls. And they've been let in front of us, and we're there to take care of business and do our job. And of course, because we are brown skinned, we have been pushed aside and allowed to feel that we're not there on the back of our merits, and we're not there as an equal. She's an amazing woman. She's a contributing fashion editor to ELLE Italia and now, fantastically enough, has become a founder of a new modest luxury brand called Sabirah Official. Yay! Now, this is my homegirl right here. She's no games. Deborah Latouche. You know, I love the name anyway. Deborah, I mean, I think I've known you for so long, and I've seen you for so long in the industry since I've lived in London, and you've always had a smile on your face. I've never seen anger with you. I've never seen disappointment. I've just seen you roll through this life in a really beautiful atmosphere. I just wanted to say that, yeah. And also, I know that you are Muslim, which of course is a very important subject right now. And you know, I just want you to have something to say about this whole Black Lives Mattering in the fashion industry. You know, I guess one of the first questions I'd like to ask you is, you know, what can us as individuals do in this fashion industry to support the Black Lives Matter movement from your perspective?
So I feel that, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel that one of the major things is that conversations like this, I think, are absolutely key and for people who are not of colour to not fear having these conversations. I think that's absolutely, for me, one of the biggest things, is that I can have the opportunity to express how I feel without somebody thinking, she's another angry Black woman, she's got a chip on her shoulder, or anything like that. But just to be open to conversation. And when people are open to conversation, there so much can happen. You know, Edward, you were talking about wanting to be at the table with regards to merit. So absolutely, completely agree with you 100%. And it's the fact that our voices can be heard at this table. But I think that for me, what I realized is, even though I'm at the table and I'm able to say something, I need other people who don't look like me to understand what I'm saying and where I'm coming from, and to align with me. Right. Because it's not just enough for me to say it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it has to be other people who understand, maybe because they've got themselves educated, they've spoken to people of colour, they've understood where we're coming from. Yeah. It's the paramount importance that, you know, that, I mean, I before I've done a European campaign, I'm not going to say the company, but a grooming campaign, and you know, it was for men, and it was a European campaign, and not one person was of any colour.
Right.
You know, but I had to say, hello, you know, come on, guys, and it was on deaf ears, because there wasn't really anybody else in the room to kind of say, well, actually, we really should speak to that company about that, because they are, by not representing anybody else of any other colour, they are actually losing customers. If we're going to talk about it just in terms of business, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, you know, but it was on deaf ears, and that was unfortunate. But it's great that people are now opening up to the conversation, because that is the beginning. That's the catalyst for change.
Yeah, I mean, we know now, and we've known since the 60s, that people fill their quotas with a tick box of tokenism, and they only put in a certain type of person of color in the space, and it's always limited to one or two people. This has got to stop. We've got to come up with answers to make sure that this no longer continues, you know, especially now that even more Black women are getting involved in the industry. Yeah. It's like they don't really want us in as well. I mean, of course, we do have the idea of Edward Innenfold finally becoming, you know, part of the whole Condé Nast system as a proper editor-in-chief. We know that. How long is it going to take now for a woman to possibly be in that position? Mm-hmm. Yes, we do have the woman who does Teenage Vogue. but it's teenage mode. Okay, so at the end of the day, when are they going to bring us to the table in an equal format? And it is a fight, and it is a place where we have to start thinking there's no longer any more fear in speaking up and understanding this. I mean, to be honest, this is the main lesson I think that we should consider for the whole human race to learn, you know?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, as far as also as a Muslim, as well as being a Black woman? Do you feel that there's any answers that we can take, as far as, you know, it's like you're saying, you want us to be all together as equal. It's not about us against them. Absolutely. What is your viewpoint on that?
So I think that for me, I have to always bring this back as well to just, you know, I mean, what is actually even happening now with regards to coronavirus? Yeah. I do feel that coronavirus came here to really teach us a lesson, to teach us the lesson of the inequalities within the human race, and to also teach us about humility. Yeah. And, you know, we were, you know, at one point, in London, I can say that, you know, really brought together everybody kind of helping each other, seeing people who were maybe deemed before to be in jobs which we didn't see and put in high esteem. All of a sudden, they are the backbone of society. They are the ones who are actually keeping everything ticking. And I think that we've been given this really big lesson. And part of this big lesson is the fragility of life, and the fact that we really have to find the humility in this. You know, it's not black versus white or white versus black. You know, because I don't hate white people, but I do love black people. And that doesn't, just because I love black people doesn't mean that I hate white people. You know, it's about, you know, reaching out and embracing each other, and kind of, you know, basically wanting for others what you want for yourself. How would you feel if you were put in that situation? And I think that goes back to the same thing about being at the table and saying, well, actually, it doesn't make sense to do this like that. You should think about it like this. You know, it's, for me, it's common sense.
Yeah. I mean, of course, not everyone feels exactly the same way you feel.
No, they don't.
But I think we need so many different versions of how we feel, which for me makes this whole conversation really interesting. I'm a 1970s girl. I'm like, power to the people. I'm like, I want to see the receipts. I want to know that you're gonna put your house in order. I want to know by now, everybody has to be pulled up. Yeah. How many of us are in the room? How many of us are considered equal in our fields and in our jobs in fashion? And you're going to have to open your doors. The party is now over. And, you know, keeping us oppressed and keeping us afraid of what we can and cannot say. It's not that we're angry. We're just not having it anymore. Yeah. And we also, as a responsibility, have to also look out for how we're represented in fashion, not in just one category, but the same when you go into any office. There will be 100 white women working there. None of them are the same. Neither are we. Yeah. It's time to get this together. And it's time to understand we have that responsibility to let it be known that we are not just in two categories. Yes. We are in as many categories as everybody else. Like you say, it's a human thing. But on that other note, I'd love to introduce to someone who's been really, you know, an amazing help to Fashion Roundtable. He is Fashion Roundtable's Research and Development Director, and he is leading us in our representation and inclusion paper, the APPG. His name is Dr. Royce. I don't want to say it wrong, because I don't want the shade after this. I don't want the shade.
I won't give you shade, believe me. Someone else maybe.
Am I saying your name properly? Dr. Royce Mahawatte.
Mahawatte.
Oh, that sounds fierce. I love it. Well, I'd like to introduce Royce, because Royce is doing so much work as well as a lecturer. He's involved in the education system, and I'd love to see his take on how he sees the fashion industry helping the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right, yeah. Well, firstly, thank you so much for asking me to come along. I mean, I know we're all Fashion Roundtable, but I mean, it's just amazing to be here, and I get really exhilarated actually seeing all these wonderful faces of colour. I just get, black faces. I just feel really happy. Most of the Zoom calls I'm in at the moment are not like that. So, so yeah, I mean, so it's kind of wonderful. I mean, for me, I think I kind of want to break it down. I mean, one obvious thing I think probably to say is kind of why would actually a British Asian guy actually be here at the moment? And I would kind of want to bring that up immediately, because I think it's kind of important thing to say. There is obviously a lot of anti-Black sentiment within Asian communities, which I myself have witnessed, and I think that it's a kind of a lot of it comes from fear, and it's how colonial oppression works to divide and rule, and everybody kind of wants to approximate themselves in relation to whiteness, and this is something that has been a part of my life and part of my kind of journey throughout all of this. I mean, with relation to kind of fashion and Black Lives Matter, I think, particularly for my work at Central St Martin's, teaching cultural studies there, one of the things that I've always wanted to make really clear to students is that our bodies are completely kind of politically inscribed, and that you cannot talk about the fashion industry, about fashion history and representation in fashion without talking about colonial violence and colonial and imperialism. You cannot separate the two. And to just sort of understand that fashion is about talking about lovely things and beautiful dresses is wonderful, but we have to kind of understand its historical context. You wouldn't have a fashion industry without the cotton trade, in the most basic way.
There it is.
We wouldn't have it. Okay. And also, I think that fashion operates around narratives, and one of the biggest kind of narratives is the black body and the white body, and how those two things work together. So on the one hand, we have the kind of colonial violence of the industry itself, and then we have what happens on the page. And what we look at, and those are the two things that I've always been really interested in, I think. And I think the kind of academic journey I went on, I started off doing English literature, and eventually it kind of evolved into talking about bodies and race, and the way in which the language of fashion contains all of these kind of political ideas. I think that the kind of violence that we've been seeing, the structural violence, policing, the violence in policing, and the violence of the legal system, these things we can see parallels within the fashion industry. And to link the two together is not trivializing the violence that happens. It's not trivializing the violence that's happening on the streets. Okay, it's about trying to actually understand that there's a kind of continuum. And what I hope is that students who kind of understand, who read my work, or who kind of will benefit from the kind of APPG work that we do, they will kind of try to understand that these things are on a continuum, and we experience them. Those knots in the stomach that Michelle was talking about, that is, in my view, a kind of response to these kinds of violent aggressions.
Yes, completely. I mean, with the way we are also taught in fashion. I mean, I didn't go to fashion college. I was always asked to get involved in fashion designers, just from the way I spoke and the way I dressed myself, and how I approach things fashionably. But I do feel there's a huge gap, and you're right, the curriculum definitely has to change. Even in fashion design, it's designed to dress a girl with no backside and no front. Not saying she has to be a size 20 boo, but even a black girl a size 10, she has body. This is all disregarded completely. Also disregarded with the fact of the way they make colors to suit black people. So I think it's our duty as people in the industry to support and produce much more information that is supplied in the curriculum to understand that we are fashion. Because at the end of the day, I've always said this, fashion, like you said, comes from our cultures, all cultures. And for me, culture is luxury.
Yeah.
Hands down. Mm-hmm. So if you want to tap into our culture, you have to respect what we are here to give, and we have to respect the space that we hold. I mean, personally, it is the curriculum that has to change. I mean, do you feel that there's an answer to that, Royce?
Oh God. How long do we have? Everyone go home, because you've now started me on decolonizing the curriculum.
We got a minute and a half.
Okay, right. Okay, so, I mean, there's a lot of talk about decolonizing the curriculum and Rose Must Fall, and trying to dismantle. I'm going to speak really fast. If you don't understand, just try to slow me down. The pulling down of the statue is symbolic. Okay, it's symbolic of what's happened at Oxford University, and hopefully we can try to understand that what's happening there could be cascaded through the rest of our education system. In fashion, I think there's a very particular kind of area that we need to think about, and I think that I deal with the critical skills, so I don't work quite so much with the design itself, and I think that absolutely needs to kind of reform, from what I've heard. Completely. Okay, I mean, but teaching students about, you know, I mean, talking to them about colonial theory, talking to them about the different kinds of ways in which history have formed, the ways in which we talk about the black body as well. All of these ideas are now kind of on social media, and they're in hashtags, but a lot of them come from the black scholars who've been writing for decades. Yeah. Okay, a lot of these ideas are not new. Okay, you know, they've been around for decades. You know, starting with, you know, James Baldwin, Deborah. You have, you know, we have a lot of scholars already. But when you think about the way our systems work, they've been kind of marginalised and sidelined, and that's something that I found as I kind of moved through my own research. It was just illogical to not include these people, because they offer so much, and I thought that the thinking of many black scholars, like, you know, Kabina Mercer, the loads of scholars, they have the answers that we are looking for our modernity. They've thought about these things because they had to, in many different ways. You know, James Baldwin, his writing as well. You know, it's all there. It's been waiting for us. It is waiting for us. I think
evidently it's our duty to make it happen.
Yeah.
We also can't live anymore with, oh wow, you as a privilege are going to save our lives. We have to save our own lives. We have to push our own buttons, and we have to let it be known that we can.
My only caveat is that this is much harder than it appears, because with the best will in the world, I mean, I don't know if any of you have seen the UAL Truth Instagram feed, which, you know, breaks my heart to see, though I'm not surprised at all. I thought I would mention that. Despite tutors trying their hardest to try to decolonize curriculum, you have to deal with the actual academic management teams that are often very, very tepid and very worried about the kind of work that we do, and constantly not wanting to enable as much as they could for all sorts of complicated reasons, some sinister and some not. You know, some purely administrative, and so it's harder. It's not just about the teachers themselves and the lecturers themselves. It's about how they engage the bigger infrastructure, which is really about how speaks to the bigger questions about white supremacy.
Yes, so, yeah. I mean, it just all falls back to ignoring the issues. We can no longer allow the issues to be ignored. We have to step up. We have to disregard the fear. It took one girl, 21 years old, to stand in the street to film the degradation and murder and lynching of a black man for us to even have this conversation.
Yeah.
How deep is that?
Yeah.
And we have to understand the depth of privilege has to fix up. And a lot of people don't realize that that is what they are doing. But it comes from that question. Would you rather live to be 100 and a black man, or to live to be 53 and a white man? That's the real shade. Right. Because the shade is, would they trade their place? Yeah. No, which means things have got to change. And when we see something, it's not that we call it out in anger, but we are here to educate. People don't know unless you tell them. It's not a guessing game anymore. And of course they avoid it, but you pull them up. And it doesn't have to be aggressive. It's just a matter of fact. And it's in everything that we're doing. I'm sorry.
I'll say one thing. I do agree with you, but I also think, particularly in fashion, people are very good at knowing what not to know. Okay, they know it and they pretend not to know.
It's convenient.
Yeah. Okay,
It's convenient, honey.
That's it.
It's very convenient. Does anybody else have anything to say on what we're talking about as far as educating?
Yes,
I think that's a really, really big point of view.
I'd like to say something, and I think absolutely education is vital, is absolutely key, and it isn't, and it's not just to wait until we get to a fashion school or an art school. We have to start from much younger. I mean, being here, you know, I'm a Londoner born and bred. My parents are from the Caribbean. Now, my parents always told myself and my sisters about who we are as Black British people. We were the first generation to be Black British, that things are different for us, but we also learned about English history, European history. But when it came to Black history, it was very minimal. It was very wishy-washy. Like, there was nothing there. So fortunately, I had that network around me to teach me, or for me to be able to find out for myself. What I think is important right now is that, yes, we need to change the curriculum. It's fundamental, because I want younger generation, children coming up from primary school, secondary school and beyond, and all children, every single one of them, to learn about Black British history, because it is so rich and it's so interwoven with, this is history of this country, and it's important that they know, that they feel confident in their own backgrounds, and they can bring that and share it with other people. And then you go through to secondary school, exactly the same thing. Teachers need to know that as well. Parents need to know. I went to Central St. Martin's. I studied fine art painting. I was one of 5 Black students in my year group doing fine art out of 120.
Wow,
and even in that space, I was there because I wanted to be there. I wanted to paint. But actually the problem lay with the tutors. And I think, Royce, what you were saying actually about the institutional kind of thinking they have about Black people being in this art space.
Yeah.
The amount of tutorials that I had, oh my gosh, the number of tutorials that I had where I actually had to tutor looking at my artwork. It's an oil painting. It was like a still life of a bowl of fruit, for God's sake. And I would have the question, oh, so does this reflect your Caribbean background? No, it doesn't. It's a bowl of fruit. You do not ask anybody else, does it reflect your Irish backgrounds or your South African? No. So I think, and again, that needs to stop. So we need to really look at the art education, higher education, university, the professors, all of it. We really need to implement change. But even if you're not an academic, even if you are like you and I, like everyone that's here, I'll say here in this room, but you know what I mean. You know, we are doing something, we're doing something different. We should be able to go into a company or go into a school, talk to those people about what we do. Let them see us. Let them ask us questions.
Yes.
I think it's so vital, because with me, I didn't study fashion. I didn't study business. I've learned this from the ground up. I've grafted, I've learned, I've collaborated with different types of people. I'm a curious person. And I wish I had somebody when I first started to actually show me the ropes and kind of help me sort of navigate the way, especially as an experience as a Black professional, a Black salesperson.
Yeah.
So if I can do that for other people, I will do it, because it's important. I want another Black woman who looks like me, who is interested in or does what I do, to know that, yes, you're doing it because this is business.
Right.
You have the right to be in that arena like anybody else. But when you feel that someone is really, you know, taking advantage of you or making you feel like the token, all this kind of crap, also that there is someone that you, or a space or a place that you can go to just get it off your shoulders.
Yeah.
You need to be able to see that. Like I
think that's why I say it's our duty to educate in every way, shape, and form. Also to educate the newer up and coming people as mentors.
Absolutely.
And also with mentoring them, it's not only to tell them to be proud, but also to know that from now on, we should no longer fight to be the only one in the room as well.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of things that goes on within the Black community itself that stops other Blacks from, you know, rising to the top. That also,
absolutely, we
Absolutely.
that to me is a very big problem, because we are constantly told only a few of you can come in.
Exactly.
So we have to kill that metaphor.
Yeah, we really need to. I mean, I just want, sorry to talk over you, but no, I totally agree with you. And I think that, you know, this is something that I've seen before, and I've always spoken up about it because I don't want that for myself. I'm just thinking, what's your problem here? This is not a competition. And also, I don't want it to be a thing between Black men in the fashion industry. They're the cool ones who do this. Black women, okay, you can just come in for a little bit. Bye-bye, off you go, off you go. No. We have to support each other, of course, have those debates, have those arguments and have disagreements, but actually have the mutual respect for each other and have the support for each other. I think it's so important, and especially for people like myself who often work behind the scenes. We are the cogs. We're the ones who are working. We have our ears and our eyes open. We're watching everything. And we also need the support. We do. And I wish that I want to be able to say that to other people, to other Black women in particular who are going to Pitti Uomo in Florence, and they are the only one who is standing there in a hall, a room full of 1,000 other brands, and you're the only one, and everyone is looking at you.
Right.
You know, everyone is kind of like, hey, what's going on? You know? And it's okay to stand there. You know what you're doing.
My life.
Yeah. And I just think it's so important. But also I do want to say this, that I want to say thank you actually to the people that I have met along the way and who have shaped my career. I've been able to collaborate with, and that's something that I think as designers, as consultants, we still need to continue that collaboration. It's so important with other cultures, with other people, because again, this is about business. This is an industry, and we all have something to contribute. And we just want to make sure that brands see us in the right way, because if they don't, as I said before, I've taken the door off the hinge. We're going to come through anyway.
I mean, can I say one thing about just backtracking a bit to education, because I am also a teacher as well, and I teach I teach knitwear in different schools here in Italy. The precursor to that is also important to understand how the students are actually being recruited into the schools. You know, we have to call these schools to task, because it's easy that they'll go to China to recruit, they'll go to Japan to recruit, they'll go all over, anywhere else over Europe to recruit. Do they go to Africa to recruit? Do they consider that Black and brown people might want to be involved in the creative industry? You know, there's a conversation there. There's also a conversation there. Of course, we know African families, they want their children to be doctors and lawyers, you know, when they're coming to Europe. So this conversation in calling to task from our scale, the headhunters in the middle.
Yes.
Headhunters that receive jobs have to be called to task. The recruiters for the school, they all have to be called to task. And we have not been strong enough at that point. I think it's really, really important that there's an accountability to what these placements, how these placements are happening, and why are they not happening. Yeah. Because when I go into these schools, I walk in and I am the only one, and these are students.
That's quite sad. I mean, I speak to a mutual friend of mine, and you probably all know her very well. Her name is Sarah Moa, and I think she's done so much work in trying to bring together, you know, fashion from all over the world. And the last thing I went to that she did was amazing, because it was the first time I've seen so many different African students showing their work as well. So it's not just going to Nigeria, or it's just not going to Ghana. We are much bigger than that. And I think that now more than ever, we have to make these statements. We have to send the letters. We have to make things happen. So the colleges have to become a lot more responsive, not just have students that are paying them loads of money to be there, but to generate talent worldwide, globally.
Absolutely.
And we're not trying to be in front of anyone because we're Black. We're trying to have an equal space because we're Black. That's a whole different point of view.
Yeah.
But yes, I am so excited to be a part of this conversation. I feel blessed. Everybody was just, you killed me already. I'm loving the fact that people even tuned in to even listen to us, because it must be very frustrating not to be able to speak. But at the end of the day, it would be great to hear a few questions if we can. Tamara, do you think that that's possible?
I think we've definitely got time because people have stayed engaged in the call. Just while people are typing their questions, I saw a question for Edward about being the first person in a room from your background and whether that's shifted. I think you kind of answered that in terms of student engagement. The question I think Fiona asked about the new inquiry, yet another inquiry that the British government are taking. I think it's very interesting, the choice of lead on that, who was part of Vote Leave, who was the culture lead at City Hall under Boris and now sits within the Cabinet Office, has publicly previously declared there is no such thing as racial discrimination, who interestingly was on a panel with me just before I launched Fashion Roundtable for Show Studio. She was there as saying how great leaving the EU was going to be for the fashion economy. And now obviously she's the one taking us out of the EU economy. I am worried about the voices that they will choose to be part of it. And I thought David Lammy was very powerful when he said, Edward, this is probably out of I don't know if this has been in your news, but obviously with Black Lives Matter, the government here are trying to pick up on this. And David Lammy, who is a fantastic MP for my next door constituency in Tottenham, said it sounds like it was written on the back of a fag packet, which is London vernacular for like, seriously, this took 2 seconds. Let's really talk about it. And it smacks of that, as does a lot of what's been happening recently. So that's a thought. Also, I know that we're sharing the newsletter and our representation and inclusion policy survey, which Royce is the academic lead on, and we have been working on this pro bono for over a year. It's the first piece of policy work to happen through an APPG looking at the fashion industry and how we can look at representation and inclusion. It's a huge piece of work, and it's never more timely than now, because now finally people are listening. We've been banging this drum, haven't we, since 3 years since we launched, with nothing, and my phone and loads of hammering and Karen and Royce's support, so thank you. And if we've got questions, I will devolve back to Karen, but just please do the survey, share the survey, sign up to our newsletter. This will go on our YouTube. The BFC have said they'll share it as well, which is great, but please do feed into that work because it will really help Royce with the outcomes. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just say one thing, I mean, it's a really important piece of work, and what we're trying to actually do is just get lots of different voices, and then that are organised by sector. So if anyone's here who's listening, you know, they have particular experiences they want to talk about in relation to their experiences of working in the fashion industry, regardless of your sector. You can get in touch, and then we just want to kind of hear your story. Either you can give evidence in person, or you can kind of give written evidence to, you know, you choose, you know, the level at which you want to engage with us, and hopefully we can kind of think up and find from the evidence kind of interesting policy recommendations. And I particularly kind of, I mean, this may even be something for a future policy paper, but actually looking at anti-blackness within the fashion industry in itself, and, you know, and within creative industries, because I don't think you can really talk about modernity without talking about the Black experience. That the two things are completely kind of, you know, the experience of brown people come in a close second. It's a different kind of thing, but, you know, this is a fundamental part of our modern life. And if you have any experiences, that would be great, and we can kind of link these two kind of policy recommendations. So please.
Well, I'll leave that with you, Tamara, to close.
Okay, thank you. So I think we covered all the questions. If anybody's got anything else they'd like to add, please email admin@fashionroundtable.co.uk. We would like to do a series of these webinars on this, because I think, you know, we've glided through an hour, and quite frankly, we're trying to reshape a narrative that's taken millennia to get here. So I I can't imagine what it's like to live in Bristol and have had to walk past those statues and go through East London, or walk past roads and streets that are built on the Age of Enlightenment. I can't imagine what that must feel like. And yeah, it's been a very moving conversation, and I'm very touched of the names of the people that have dialed in and shared your experiences. And to Royce, but thank you so much for leading this work that we're doing, Karen for being a fantastic host, Edward for dialing in from Milan, Michelle, and also Deborah. And Michelle and Deborah have been core to supporting us. And I also think it's a great shout out to Deborah's work as a Muslim Black woman with her luxury modest brand. I think it's going to be very exciting to see that development for the fashion industry. It's much needed. So thank you very much to everybody, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.